I knew something was off the second that smug little gremlin in finance leaned over my desk and said, "We'll need your files for budget." Not asked, not emailed, said it like he was doing me a favor, like I was just a button monkey with no idea what those files were actually tied to. He had that junior accountant smell, cheap cologne, expensive watch, and the unearned confidence of a frat boy who thinks QuickBooks makes him God. I didn't even look up, just tapped my phone once. That's all it took. One thumbprint to unlock a chain I'd built over 5 years, disguised under more compliance protocols than the IRS during an audit. That file he thought he was requesting? It was a loaded gun with a hair trigger. And bless his heart, he just pulled it. Quick pause while you're here. If you're one of the 97% listening and not subscribed, hit that button and give this a like. It keeps these stories coming, and trust me, this one's just warming up. Back to it. I've been with Ridge Ledger for going on 6 years. Contractor title, sure, but make no mistake, I architected the very infrastructure these clowns built their valuation on. Asset-mapped APIs, third-party patent chains, downstream licensing, all mine. I didn't brag. Didn't need to. While the C-suite paraded around at trade expos collecting visionary awards, I was in the trenches making sure their code deployments didn't trigger a federal review. But the new finance crew, fresh out of Wharton and full of themselves, they didn't see me. Hell, they barely knew I existed. I wasn't in their happy hour Slack channels or on the rooftop yoga invites, just the lady in the corner with the encrypted phone, the unlisted credentials, and the annoying habit of not screwing things up. They especially didn't like that I asked questions, like, why is Travis approving vendor access keys without review? Or, why is our escrow holding entity no longer on the internal compliance log? Questions that made their faces twitch. Questions that made them smile too tightly and reply with things like, "You don't need to worry about that, just keep the systems clean." So I did. Cleaner than they could have imagined. Every asset tag, every metadata trail, every single byte of intellectual property we'd ported from the 2018 Clearfold acquisition, I tied it all into a containment structure buried in an old vendor clause. Back when our last CFO still had ethics and an attention span. It was called 12A4F. And unless you worked in asset enforcement or corporate law, you'd skim right past it. But it mattered. It mattered a lot. The clause stated, in not so unclear terms, that any unauthorized transmission of the Ridge Ledger asset chain to a non-designated party, including internal finance teams without reauthorization, would trigger a reversion of ownership to the original custodial license partner, which, as of last year, just happened to be a little firm called NQ Systems. No one in the building ever asked me what NQ stood for. I never offered. I just kept maintaining the metadata vault, logging IP shifts, and keeping things neat, until Travis swaggered over and demanded access like he was checking out a library book. So I gave it to him. The moment that file left my vault and hit the internal share drive, the script kicked off. Escrow relay pinged, asset hooks fired, external locks began their crawl, and I just sat there, calmly sipping my burnt office coffee, watching Travis grin like he'd just solved world hunger because he got a zip file. He had no clue what he'd just detonated. But I did. Because some of us don't play loud. We play long. The budget session was already a slow-motion train wreck before Travis opened his mouth. Half the room was checking their phones. The CFO was obsessing over line items that didn't exist 2 weeks ago, and legal was conveniently reviewing remotely, which meant no one was there to stop what was about to happen. I was in my usual corner seat, notebook open, not because I needed it, but because people expect women in meetings to look like we're taking notes, even when we're silently inventorying every idiot in the room. Then Travis leaned back in his chair, spun his pen between his fingers like he was auditioning for Shark Tank, and dropped it. "Hey, Mason," he said, like he was addressing the office janitor. "Legal says we'll need your asset file for the audit, like the full Ridge Ledger stack. You can just drop it into the shared drive." The air in the room shifted. Not much. Just a beat. But I felt it. No formal request, no signed pull log, not even an email. Just a budget meeting, a smirk, and a condescending tone so thick I could have paved I-95 with it. The CFO didn't even blink. That's what got me. He just nodded, like this was standard. Like asking for a live asset stack from the architect of the system wasn't the functional equivalent of walking into a data center with a crowbar and saying, "Mind if I poke around?" Now, I've played nice for years. I know when to raise a red flag and when to let someone hoist themselves by their own. And Travis? He was practically climbing the pole. I tapped my pen once on the desk, then looked up, just long enough for our eyes to meet. He was already looking away, too full of himself to notice the burn behind my smile. Sure, I said, calm, neutral. Check your inbox. He chuckled. Thanks, he muttered, turning back to his laptop like I was the secretary confirming lunch plans. But what I had just sent wasn't lunch. It wasn't even the full asset file. It was the metadata matrix, the log of logs, so to speak. The file that held the skeletal framework of every IP tag, API hook, front-end template, and back-end license Ridge Ledger had ever paid to host or repurpose. Think of it like giving someone a map of every hidden door in a building, along with the keys, and then watching them break one open without checking if it's booby-trapped. The best part? I didn't even have to encrypt it. That would have drawn suspicion. I sent it exactly as requested. No edits, no tampering, no firewall, just the truth, raw and bleeding, zipped and time-stamped. And with that, the chain began. Because the second that file was accessed, truly accessed, the trigger clause kicked in. Clause 12A4F. Buried in a licensing agreement no one in that room even remembered existed. One that said, if that metadata file was moved, shared, or repurposed without written reauthorization from both the IP custodian and the escrow signatory, the entire linked asset tree would revert to its last verified owner. They never knew who that owner was, but I did. Travis didn't know he'd just pulled the pin. The CFO was too distracted by his $10 million shortfall to notice the grenade. And legal? Off-site. Untouchable. Until suddenly, they weren't. I closed my notebook, not with drama, just slowly, with finality, and leaned back in my chair like someone watching a thunderstorm build over a golf course full of aluminum umbrellas. Nobody noticed. Not yet. I zipped my backpack slowly, methodically. No rush, just one zipper tooth at a time, like I had all the time in the world, because technically I did. Nobody in that room understood what had just happened. Not Travis, who was too busy watching his own reflection in his laptop screen, and definitely not the CFO, who raised an eyebrow when I stood up like I was violating some unspoken contractor seating policy. Leaving already? The CFO asked, tone casual but with that baked-in executive irritation that creeps out whenever someone doesn't follow the unspoken rule of staying until the boss is done talking. I nodded once. Not a word. My hands didn't hover near the keyboard. I didn't drag anything to the trash. Didn't touch a damn file. Because I didn't need to. Every byte of value was already gone the second Travis opened that zip file. Travis let out this little laugh. Short, smug, dismissive. Didn't think we'd scare her off with an asset pull, he said, just loud enough for the whole room to hear. Guess not everyone can handle the pressure of Q4. I didn't even look at him, just slung my backpack over my shoulder and reached for my coffee cup. That was when it happened. The door didn't open. It exploded. Corporate counsel, Jacqueline Alvarez, came in like she'd sprinted from the basement, heels clacking against the tile like warning shots. Her face, normally a shade between iron and ice, was ghost white. And for a woman who once redlined an M&A clause while in active labor, that was saying something. She didn't look around, didn't ask for clarification, just locked eyes with the CFO and barked. Did someone just send metadata logs from the Ridge Ledger folder? Say it, out loud. Travis froze. His smirk melted off his face like a cheap whack candle. The CFO straightened in his chair, blinking slowly. We asked Mason for the file, he said, suddenly less confident. For audit prep. Nothing proprietary, just standard budget assets. You idiots, Jacqueline snapped. You triggered the clause, the asset seizure clause. Do you even know what you just did? Silence hit the room like a concussion grenade. I watched as the blood drained from the CFO's face, a full 3 seconds behind his comprehension. Travis finally spoke, voice barely above a whisper. Wait, that's still active? Jacqueline turned to him so fast he flinched. It never expired. It's tied to the 2018 Clearfold acquisition. Clause 12A4F. You accessed a custodial protected metadata compendium without cross-party reauthorization. Do you understand what that means? Travis swallowed. I thought it was just budget stuff. No, she said, with the finality of a guillotine. You opened a live node. The transfer protocol has already started, and if it completes... She didn't finish. Just turned in a slow, stunned circle, taking in the full room of blinking, stammering professionals who were about to learn exactly what it means to mistake authority for immunity. And me, I didn't flinch, didn't move. I just took one long sip of my lukewarm coffee, staring at the window like I was watching a summer storm roll in. Because they weren't just losing control of the budget file, they were losing the company, bite by bite, line by line. And all I'd done was say yes. By the time I made it halfway down the hallway, the sound behind me wasn't conversation anymore. It was a storm of panicked, overlapping voices, phones ringing, shoes pounding the tile, someone yelling for contract storage access now. I didn't need to look back. I knew the dance. Knew the moment when people start flipping through digital files like that'll undo the ink on the original. I ducked into the side alcove by the vending machines. Not to hide, just to get a better vantage point. My coffee was still warm, the vending light flickering overhead like some sort of cheap interrogation room. Felt fitting. Across the open floor, I saw Jacqueline's hair bobbing as she practically ran with two paralegals and one poor IT tech in tow, laptop open mid-stride. She was barking commands, scrolling through some internal database, and rattling off legalese like a metronome on meth. Somewhere in the middle of that, she said the words out loud. 12.A, subsection 4, paragraph F. Get me the signed version. Original countersign, not a PDF. I smiled into my coffee. Clause 12A4F. You'd think a number like that would show up on red flags, but it didn't. Not in a company that rotated execs every fiscal year and treated corporate memory like a liability. The clause itself was buried in a 200-page vendor licensing agreement from the Clearfold merger back in 2018, back when they acquired a bundle of IPs nobody fully understood but were too valuable to question. The clause was boilerplate to most. Language about exclusive control parameters of digital asset compendiums under unauthorized reuse. But it had teeth. It said this: if any compiled Ridge Ledger asset file, especially metadata structures, was accessed without dual-party reauthorization from both the current IP custodian and the signatory escrow partner, ownership rights of any asset downstream of that file would revert, automatically. No hearing, no litigation, just reversion through the escrow channel. And that escrow partner? Not Ridge Ledger. Not anymore. They didn't realize it, but the second Travis opened that zip file, he signed a transfer. Not of the file, of the entire infrastructure it pointed to. Someone, I think it was the CFO's assistant, let out this cracked little noise, half-choked, and shouted, "But we own the assets!" Jacqueline didn't even look up. You licensed them, you never bought the underlying map, and now you triggered the clause that rewrote everything tied to that architecture. The IT guy murmured, "The timestamps, there's something weird in the zip properties." She paused. What kind of weird? He turned his screen so she could see. This? See the embedded UID? Jacqueline squinted, then went dead still. NQ Systems? I nearly dropped my coffee, just from how hard I was holding back a laugh. She stepped back from the screen, blinking like she'd just seen a ghost. Who the hell is NQ Systems? That's not on any of our vendor logs. No, it wouldn't be. NQ Systems had one purpose, one set of keys, and it sure as hell wasn't listed in their current CRM because I'd built it 3 years ago, quietly, during an access restructure they thought was about cost optimization. A small LLC routed through a Delaware holding firm, split with a dormant BVI shelf that held custodial enforcement rights for the Ridge Ledger asset map. That metadata file they just accessed? It wasn't just data, it was a beacon. One flick of the switch, and every third-party hosting firm, licensing service, and mirrored API that touched our architecture would begin following the instructions embedded in the original contract. Reroute access, lock usage, begin transfer, because if you don't know where your code comes from, you damn well better know who gets it when you screw up. Someone finally asked the question, "Can we undo it?" Jacqueline didn't answer, not because she didn't know, but because she did. And all I did was watch them scramble, their empire of assumptions collapsing in on itself like a bad souffle, while I quietly checked the clock. Tick, tick. By 10:14 a.m., the chain reaction was no longer theory. It was happening in real time. Servers locking, license keys blinking invalid, endpoints going dark one by one. Not a glitch, not a system error, just cold, calculated reversion. Every digital asset Ridge Ledger had leaned on for the past 5 years. Vanishing, not deleted, just inaccessible, transferred. The first to panic was engineering, then ops, then the client support lines lit up like a Christmas tree on meth. Thousands of users couldn't access core features. API calls were failing. Contracts in mid-renewal were bouncing from payment processors because the hosting metadata no longer matched. In cloud terms, it was a slow bleed out, a very public one. IT finally confirmed it. Jacqueline made them say it out loud, like it might hurt less if it came from a sysadmin. The download triggered external asset hooks. The script that deployed, it's tied to a registry chain embedded in the original folder metadata. It's calling external handlers, and they're responding. Her voice was razor thin. Which handlers? The sysadmin didn't even look up. NQ Systems. The room fell dead quiet. Someone in marketing actually gasped, like they knew that name, but only in the way you know the word extinction. NQ Systems wasn't on the vendor sheet, wasn't in the CRM. It had never issued a single invoice. But now it was deploying seizure protocols like it owned the damn place. Because technically, it did. Cloud-hosted patents, rerouted, UI templates, gone. Every single front-end mock Ridge Ledger had licensed and built on top of from the Clearfold acquisition, now redirected to placeholder screens tagged with nothing but a hex code. Even the internal comms app, the one they used to gossip about who was being laid off next, crashed. Someone shouted from down the hall, "The investor dashboard is offline!" And another, "My access just got revoked. I'm locked out of staging." Jacqueline muttered something under her breath. A prayer or maybe a curse, then grabbed the nearest conference room whiteboard and started mapping damage. One of the senior directors, a guy who thought blockchain was still a PowerPoint animation, squinted at the screen. "Who the hell is behind NQ Systems?" he asked, tone equal parts panic and denial. "Who owns that?" No one answered right away. Then someone in legal, young, maybe a year out of law school, the kind who still believed policies mattered, whispered, "Flynn's initials are NQ." It was quiet. Too quiet. Everyone turned toward the glass hallway, where I was sitting, legs crossed, vending machine coffee in hand, not even pretending to be bothered, no laptop open, no phone in sight, just me, calm as hell, like I was waiting for a delayed bus, not overseeing the controlled collapse of their digital estate. The CFO burst out of the conference room a moment later, eyes locked on me like I was a bomb he forgot he'd armed. "What is this? What the hell is NQ Systems?" I raised my cup like a toast. "It's in the file you asked for." He blinked. "We didn't authorize any of this." "Exactly," I said, sipping, "which is why it's happening." He opened his mouth, but Jacqueline stepped between us, her expression brittle and exhausted. "She's right. The clause was never nullified. Accessing that file without joint approval activated the reversion. We're past the rollback window. It's executing." The CFO looked at me like I'd kicked his dog. "You set us up." "No," I said. "You ignored the architecture." The hallway buzzed with chaos behind him. Calls dropping, analysts shouting, legal scrambling to find a ghost owner in a Delaware registry they hadn't bothered to check. And me? I sat still. Not smug, not angry, just still. Because I didn't need to gloat. They were doing it to themselves. And the funny thing about building invisible systems, no one sees the tripwire until they're already falling. By 10:52 a.m., the war room was full, except no one was fighting the right enemy. Legal had 3 monitors lit up with overlapping contract scans, trying to parse ancient language they should have flagged years ago. It had gone into full triage mode, trying to contact hosting vendors that were now legally prohibited from responding. Jacqueline had a red stress blotch spreading across her collarbone, and the CFO was pacing like a man waiting for a judge's verdict. Which, in a way, he was. The protocol wasn't just active, it was smart. Built to cascade with latency buffers, ensuring one step wouldn't trigger without completing the last. 6 hours. That's what they had. Less now. 5 hours and change before full rights, access, and administrative control of Ridge Ledger's linked IP stack, cloud license templates, live use patent hooks, API token registries were no longer theirs. Someone in ops said, "Can we pause it or slow it down?" like it was a Netflix stream. Jacqueline didn't even look up. "It's not stoppable on our end. The transfer sequence isn't hosted internally. The license chain is executing via a third-party enforcement node. This was built to end-run internal override. The only path to halt is..." Her eyes met mine. "Revocation by the original custodian." And there it was. The first time they said it out loud. I was the originator. Not the owner. Not anymore. But the last verified escrow-recognized custodian of the asset chain before they opened Pandora's zip file. The CFO turned slowly, his face twitching between fury and something closer to fear. "You need to fix this," he said, low and even, like he thought calm made it sound more professional. "Now." I looked up from my phone. "Fix what?" "This," he hissed. "Whatever the hell this is. You're sabotaging—" "Nope," I cut in. "You asked for my file. I gave you my file. Clause 12A4F, executed upon access. Nothing I can do." He stepped forward, breath hot with panic. "You set this up. You embedded that clause to blow us up if we crossed you." I blinked. "It's in a vendor agreement your legal team countersigned in 2018. You think I had the power to sneak language past 2 law firms and a merger team?" He opened his mouth, closed it, then looked to Jacqueline, who offered a single exhausted nod. "The clause is valid, we confirmed. Her name appears twice, once in the build-out logs, once as a platform custodian, both time-stamped." That's when the CFO pivoted. "You want a bonus?" he said, fast, forced smile twitching on his lips. "You want a retainer, an exec title, a 5-year comp package? Say the word. I can make it happen by EOD. You stop this, I'll triple your last contract." I didn't move. "You're going to let this company fall apart," he added, voice cracking at the edges. "Over some metadata?" I sipped my coffee. "You think this is about metadata?" Then came the real shift. The desperate, cornered man act dropped like a snakeskin, and what came out next was sharp, clipped, and weaponized. "If this damages our valuation, our partners will sue. You'll be blacklisted. Good luck finding work in this town with a litigation shadow hanging over your—" "Page 3, I said quietly. He stopped. "What?" "You should have read page 3, I repeated. "That's where the indemnity clause sits. The one that says any damages triggered by this reversion fall solely on the accessing party. That would be Travis, directed by you." Silence. Pure, heavy, corporate silence, the kind that fills conference rooms right before a resignation or a criminal indictment. And then Jacqueline spoke, like someone lighting the final match. "She's not liable. The clause is airtight. You signed it." The CFO stood there for a long moment, eyes glassy, chest rising with short little gasps like he might be having a panic attack he was too proud to admit. I didn't gloat. I didn't smirk. I just leaned back and whispered, 5 hours left, and let the clock do the rest. The boardroom was already full when I walked past it. Glass walls, leather chairs, 10 people in suits who didn't know the first thing about infrastructure but could recite quarterly projections like gospel. Their faces, red, pale, twitching, screamed one thing. They'd finally understood that this wasn't a glitch. It was a handover. And they were 2 hours into a 6-hour countdown with nothing but confusion and finger-pointing to show for it. I didn't get called in. I didn't need to be. I wasn't on the board, wasn't even salaried. I was still, to them, a contractor. External, disposable. Until this morning, they probably couldn't have picked me out of a lineup. Now they were using my name like a swear word. Inside the room, the lead investor, Reynolds, founder of a $300 million growth fund with a temper like an unpinned grenade, slammed a palm on the table hard enough to make one of the execs flinch. "You're telling me," he snapped, "that a contractor, someone not even on payroll, has control over your asset map?" Jacqueline, calm but exhausted, replied, "She didn't have control. She had chain of custody." He barked a laugh. "Oh, much better. So she didn't hijack it. She just kept the keys. Fantastic." The CFO tried to interject, but Reynolds waved him off like a waiter who'd brought the wrong order. Don't spin this. I want facts. Right now." Travis, in what I can only describe as the single most predictable act of cowardice I've ever seen, leaned forward like a kid caught cheating mid-exam and said, "Look, I didn't know it was audit season. We were prepping budgets. She sent a file. That's it." Reynolds' stare could have burned through drywall. "You accessed a core asset bundle without clearance." "I thought it was just metadata." "That metadata," Jacqueline cut in, "was the backbone of 3 legacy systems, 7 licensing streams, and every single front-end template you've deployed since 2020. Travis opened his mouth again, probably about to say, "No one told me," but he never got the chance, because that's when I sent the email. No subject line, no explanation, just a file. Clause 12A4F/final.pdf. They all saw it pop up, one by one, across their devices. I could see through the glass as heads turned. Screens lit, silence fell. It was the original clause, pulled from the 2018 Clearfold acquisition folder, uploaded from Ridge Ledger's own server. Time-stamped. Digitally signed by the prior CFO, who had since retired after a quiet bonus package nobody thought to audit. Page 3, initialed. Custodian rights assigned to me by name. I watched as Reynolds read it once, then again. His lips pressed into a line so tight it looked painful. You let this sit, unenforced, for 6 years, he muttered, and never once thought to revoke it. The CFO tried to speak, failed, then tried again. We didn't know it was still active. Reynolds laughed, short, sharp, disgusted. You didn't know? He turned to Jacqueline. Is there any way out of this? She shook her head slowly. The transfer protocol is executing legally. There's no breach. We access the file. That's the trigger. The clause is enforceable, and the platform agreed to uphold it in perpetuity. No one moved. No one breathed. I sat across the hall, still sipping vending machine coffee like it was a luxury brew. I didn't speak. I didn't need to, because right then, in that glass room of million-dollar voices and billion-dollar panic, silence had more power than any threat ever could. They built a kingdom on buried contracts and assumed no one would read the fine print. But I did. And now their empire of oversight was burning, lit by a file they asked for, delivered without a single lie, just the truth, just the clause, and me, quietly watching them finally understand who held the match. By dawn, the spin machine had kicked into gear. Ridge Ledger's homepage was stripped to a single banner, scheduled maintenance in progress. Bold text, pale blue, meant to look routine, but the inside was anything but. Access had been set to read only sometime after 3 a.m. Front-end services flickered. Customer dashboards served cached versions with broken widgets. Clients, some of them government contractors, started calling, not angry yet, but confused. Then frustrated, then something colder. The press team issued a statement just before market open. Due to an ongoing third-party licensing migration, Ridge Ledger is temporarily limiting platform access to ensure continuity of service. They even added a cute little FAQ line. No data has been lost. That part was technically true. It just wasn't theirs anymore. By 9:15, the calls started. Not from support, not from ops, from the C-suite. First, a junior VP from something called Strategic Assets Outreach left me a voicemail that sounded like a nervous intern reading a script. We'd love to chat and clarify some misunderstandings. Perhaps a resolution is possible. Then a director. Then the CFO, then finally Jacqueline. She didn't beat around the bush. We want to buy you out, she said plainly, voice flat with fatigue. Just a clean payout, NDA, and quiet dissolution of the clause. You walk away. We restore access. I let the silence hang for a moment, then said, You think I took something? It's not about that. It is. Let's be clear. I didn't steal. I didn't exploit. I didn't deceive. I followed the clause you forgot existed. I gave you exactly what you asked for. There was a long pause. I heard her exhale, maybe into her elbow, maybe to keep herself from screaming. I understand, she said. Then, what do you want? That was the moment. The big ask, the chance to rewrite the story, name my price, cash in and sail away on some revenge yacht made of gold-plated contracts and bitter executive tears. But I didn't want money. I wanted consequence. So I told her, nothing. Another pause. Excuse me? You don't get to make this right. You get to learn what happens when you skip the fine print, when you treat the people who build your empire like tools, when you forget that just because something's quiet doesn't mean it's powerless. Silence. Then, so you're walking away? I already walked, I said. You just didn't feel it until now. She didn't say goodbye, she just hung up. By the end of the day, Ridge Ledger had gone from a cloud software darling to a whispered cautionary tale in compliance circles. Investors weren't pulling yet, but they were asking questions. Hard ones. Legal ones. A few clients quietly reached out to me. Not Ridge Ledger. Me. I didn't say yes. Didn't say no either. I just watched from the outside as the machine I once helped run tried to glue itself back together with PR tape and bonus offers. But the damage wasn't the downtime. It was the realization. They'd built their future on someone they never bothered to understand and lost it to a clause they never bothered to read. The dock was still damp from the night storm, the wood cool under my boots. Fog hung low over the lake like a secret, curling between the trees and drifting past the tip of my thermos like it didn't want to be noticed. Perfect morning for silence, the kind of silence that means something's over and something else just began. I sat at the edge with my phone in hand, thumb hovering just above the screen. No texts, no calls. They'd stopped trying a day ago. Even Jacqueline had gone quiet, like the legal team had finally decided the best way to contain the damage was to pretend it had never happened. Classic Ridge Ledger. Control the narrative even when it's already in someone else's hands. A soft vibration broke the stillness. No fanfare, no dramatic tone, just one alert, plain and final. Transfer complete. Asset control confirmed. I looked at it for a long time. Not because I didn't believe it, but because it felt quiet. For all the panic it caused them, the reroute itself was clean, precise, automatic. The system didn't need my input anymore. It had followed the clause like clockwork. Every loop, every dependency, every single byte of IP that they had forgotten was even tethered. It was all here now. I pulled the laptop from my bag. No stickers, no branding, just matte black and silent as a ghost. I opened it, keyed in my passphrase, and waited. The interface that blinked awake wasn't corporate. No Ridge Ledger branding, no login splash screen with buzzwords or stock photos of innovation. Just a simple shell, clean code, one logo in the top right corner, NQ Systems. Inside it, the asset map, every redirected license, every staging key, every recovered mockup, the metadata backbone they'd used for years without ever fully understanding. It sat there now like a tamed animal, mine again. Or maybe it always had been. They just didn't notice until they felt the leash. I uploaded a fresh license packet, this time not to Ridge Ledger, but to a new firm. A small one, focused, hungry, but smart enough to ask the right questions before clicking send. As the packet cleared, I leaned back and looked out across the water. No sounds but the distant rustle of trees and the occasional splash from fish too dumb to avoid a lure. My thermos clicked open, steam rising with a sharp kick of black coffee. They wanted my file. Not strategy, not guidance, not partnership, just the numbers. Just the bones of the thing I'd built, stripped of context, reduced to a zip file, fed to a spreadsheet so they could shave another 5% off an investor slide. They wanted my file for their budget. Turns out it was the budget.